Good evening. My name is Susan Stevenson, and I'm the Chair of the Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation for the Village of Southampton, New York. I'm calling this meeting on September 9th, 2019 to order. Do I have a motion to open the meeting?
I make a motion that we open this meeting of September 9th, 2019.
Second?
Aye.
Aye.
Did you second it?
Oh, second.
Oh, I can second it. Okay, aye. Before we begin, I want to make it clear that I expect everyone, the board and the public, to act and speak with civility during this meeting. Anyone who intends to speak should sign in at the front table so we have the correct spelling of your name for the record. No one may speak until they are recognized by the chair, and only one person can stand up at the and talk at a time. If you're presenting materials, please place them on the desk facing the board so our videographer can get a shot of them. Now I'd like to introduce our board for tonight. To my left, Rob Coburn, Christina Redding. To my right, Jeff Broadleaf. Our counsel, Bo Robinson, and our historic consultant, Zach Studenroth, are here. Antoinette Edwards is our recording secretary, and Charles Styler is our videographer. Let's get started. First on the agenda, the minutes of August 26, 2019. Did you open them? Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for August 26, 2019.
Second.
Aye.
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 Next, signs. Tommy Latham, Shea, et cetera, there is a letter to adjourn in the file?
Yes, a request to adjourn to Monday, September 23rd. Make a motion that we accept the applicant's request to adjourn the application for Toomey Latham.
Second.
Aye.
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 Next, Compass Coleman Team, real estate sign. Please step forward, sir, and state your name.
E-Trail Revo.
I don't think anyone could hear that.
Oh, E-Trail Revo. Do I stand here?
Thank you. Do you have a copy of the sign? No.
Can we hold it up for Charlie?
First, Zach has offered to put it down. So,
Thanks, Zach.
so we have Compass, then Compass.com, then Coleman Team, then Licensed Associate Real Estate Broker. Do we need all that?
There may be some requirement that they have the licensed associate real estate broker or a similar description.
Do we need a .com on there? It just seems like an awful lot of information, but I don't care. I don't know.
I view it as a smart sign, and the descriptive font is relatively small and unobtrusive to the eye.
Just a lawn sign, right?
Yeah, this is a lawn sign,
It's a
sir?
lawn sign.
This is for lawn sign?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's clean and
Does anyone from the public have anything to say about this?
I'll make a motion that we approve the sign application for Compass.
Second.
Aye.
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 Next,
Thank you, good luck.
Jason Thomas, architect, 205 Windmill Lane, directory sign.
That's all right. There are actually three of
Three in
these
this
that are
thing.
related.
All right,
There's two
so
more applications for the other signs. This is an existing sign, stacked sign post, where they're proposing to replace three of the
This is
signs.
going to be hard to show up for Charlie.
We fortunately only need one of them because it has all three of the signs. So
all
why
right.
don't we just leave that down there? If no one's here, can we review it anyway? Oh, right?
Yeah,
Sign application? Yeah.
I don't actually have an objection to these.
I don't.
I don't know. Sign.
No.
We're all standardized. My only concern
We have
is,
to
that-
actually announce them.
yeah. So the first one
First one is
is
Jason Thomas, architect. Any objections?
my only concern is that it's so small that people may slow down to read it on
doubt
a
it.
road, but I think it's,
Not our problem.
yep.
Motion to approve Jason Thomas Architect Directory sign.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Next, gardeneering, which is on the same placard.
It's the second one down in the middle.
That one I find unobjectionable, except that the typeface is in a light green color, but that's their problem too. So I have no objection to that. Does anyone
I
else?
don't either.
Any public comments?
Nope. Motion to approve the sign for gardeneering directory sign, 205 Windmill Lane.
So moved. Second.
Aye.
Aye.
The third one is Dead on Design, also at 205 Windmill Lane on the same directory sign. I don't find that
I appreciate that these are all sort of
small.
and similar design with
Yeah.
that bold,
It's
with
very
the color
clean
strip at the bottom.
I appreciate it that they're condensed and we don't have like vermicelli, three different signs. I have no objection. Anyone from the public have an objection to this sign or for Dead on Design? Motion to approve the directory sign for Dead on Design.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Next, Southold Properties, 43 Hill Street.
I'll take the others back.
There's no one here for this? I find this to be controversial. Why are
This is-
parking signs on a building?
This is for just so the public knows, this is for a painted sign on the west side of the movie theater to indicate parking in the rear, and that it's for patrons only.
And it's pretty big.
Yeah,
It's 6.5 feet by 3
It's also,
feet. or
I mean, if we
roughly.
want to have people come to the
Red and
village,
black.
it's quite unfriendly, too.
yes, that's exactly
hasn't-
what I read in the margin.
But to me, why are we having no parking signs up on a building?
Obviously, the owner feels that it's necessary, but maybe you want to adjourn this and
Right.
request that
Let's
the
adjourn.
owner's representative appear.
Okay,
I did,
motion-
just for the record, I drove by, there's not really space, given the tightness of the pavement in the building, to put in a posted sign unless you get back behind the building, by which point it may be too late. So, but I agree, I think what they've proposed is pretty controversial and
Well, we're trying to
obtrusive.
put, the fact is, they could put it in front of the parking spots,
Yep.
and then people have to turn around and go back out,
Well,
or risk having their car towed.
Well, the enforcement part doesn't seem to be part of this, hence the sign. But let's not waste time,
In the
let's just
absence of,
adjourn it.
in the absence of a representative of the applicant, I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn this to our next meeting.
So
Okay,
moved.
And request that
Aye.
letter issued to the applicant to appear.
Okay.
okay, can we request a letter to,
Okay. And so let me amend my motion to include a letter or other communication to the applicant to request that they appear to describe the sign.
Second.
Aye.
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 Next. Written decisions. First is 72 Gin Lane LLC.
We have a written decision approving the application as submitted. Affirmative vote on the application will be for approval.
Thank you.
And Bo, if I read the decision correctly, this also acknowledges that the question that had come up regarding a covenant is not an issue at issue for this board
Correct.
or in our decision making.
Correct.
Motion to approve. Anyone have anything else to say about this?
Yeah, similar to Rob. I mean, I read the applicant's objections. I don't necessarily disagree with them, but at the end, the conclusion is, I concur with
nothing to
Bo's,
do with us.
you know, if they want to take it up in court, God bless them. Or maybe not
Or with
God bless
another
them, but
board.
maybe. I don't know. It's being magnet. Coming from me, John, that means absolutely nothing.
Really?
Yes.
Are we ready to vote?
Sure, I'll make a motion that
Only
we,
in that I have no connection with a higher power.
I'll make a motion that we approve the written decision of council for 72 Gin Lane.
Second.
Aye.
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 Motion
Spare
carried.
a copy of that.
What?
Thank you. Thank you.
Spare 2 copies?
Here.
No, I've got one for
We
you.
need an extra one in the file, so we need two. That's all we need.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, Corcoran, 24 Main Street. Exterior alterations to the existing building.
The decision approves the application as amended with regard to the lighting. Affirmative vote on the motion will be for approval.
Anyone here have anything to add?
Do you have the original for that, Susan?
No. I'm actually signing.
was here for Corcoran, but I saw it earlier.
You're right. Thanks, Rod. Anyone from the public have anything to say about the front of 24 Main Street?
Oh, we've closed it though, haven't we?
Did we?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Well, subject to decision.
okay.
I make a motion that we approve the written decision by Council of Corcoran on Main Street.
I'm not checking it.
Oh,
Second?
aye.
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 I'm a nay.
Okay. Still carries. Here's the original, Rob. Next, public hearings, non-historic. Number 1, Yogvanich has been adjourned to September 23rd, 2019. Number 2, McDonald's USA LLC. There is a letter to adjourn in the file.
Yes, a request to, there was one, I had heard from the building department that it was adjourned, but I don't see the letter.
Mr. Brown called me also and left the message that he had submitted a letter, so
Okay. I don't see it immediately in the file, but I did hear that when I was in the building.
I don't know what date it was, but
And there's no new materials.
in
Is there
the
anyone
lack
here
of
from
in the lack of a
McDonald's?
date, just adjourn it to your next meeting.
Okay, motion to adjourn the application for McDonald's to our next meeting, which is September 23rd, 2019.
So moved.
Second, aye.
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 Okay, next, Che Wojcinski, terrible, 150 Harvest Lane. Adjourned to 9/23/19. Do we have a letter? Or what did,
There was a letter, yes. The request exactly to adjourn to the 23rd of September.
great. Motion to approve applicant's request for adjournment.
So moved.
Second, aye.
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 Next, Thomas and Meredith Joyce, 765 Hill Street, adjourned to the 23rd of September 2019.
Can I make a suggestion on that, if I could?
Please step
I'm
forward,
sure it's
Mr.
John
Bennett.
Bennett, the applicant. I would think just you should push that forward a bit more, because presumably if you're going to report to the Zoning Board of Appeals later on this evening, that's gonna have to go back to the Zoning Board of Appeals. They'll take more evidence, they'll
Yeah,
probably
are
make a
you
decision.
making-
You should probably kick it over sometime in November. The hope is, depending upon what the Zoning Board of Appeals does, that the hardship application will go away.
Yeah.
Depending on what the
Well, what
ZBA
would
does.
happen is the hardship would go away, but the application based upon the Board of Appeals decision will come back.
Come back.
Yes, okay. Oh, okay. All
Yeah,
right,
we
so-
still, it's just
So
to
do you
tell-
want
way,
do you have a
makes
date
sense.
that you
Us
like
to-
other than September 23rd?
So,
Well, you need to tell us.
What's this, either the second meeting in October
Second
or
meeting
the
in
first meeting in November?
14. Well, it's actually the 28th.
28th of October?
Right.
Why don't you make it the first meeting of November?
November's canceled, the first one.
Whole month?
Veterans Day, sir.
The whole month of November?
No,
The first
the
one.
first one.
You said November is canceled.
Well, that one
Like a
is.
philosophical question. The second,
like
In my book, it
the
is.
second meeting in November?
November 25.
Yeah, that probably makes sense, yeah.
Okay, so you're asking us for an adjournment to, November 25th?
Just so I understand, that's likely then, or potentially would come back not as this hardship to demolish, but as an application for the plans to redevelop.
Exactly,
Site.
exactly.
Right,
Got it.
That's good.
based on what the ZBA says, yeah,
Yeah, what you say to the ZBA and what they say.
right, cool. All right, next,
Sorry.
Was there a vote on
There
that?
wasn't. I'll make a
Oh,
motion that we
sorry.
accept the applicant's request to adjourn to the only meeting in November,
there you go.
November
Second.
25th.
November 25th. Aye.
Second. Aye.
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 Next, Lifton Green LLC, 207 Oxpasture Road.
John Bennett, for the applicant, I'm going to make the same request that I'm going to make on the advisory matter. Lifton Green LLC is the contract vendor on this property. With me this evening is Matthew Packman from Ackerman Packman in East Hampton, who represents the Pico family, who are the owners. They are going to step into this application on both the application to approve all of the house and the request for the Zoning Board of Appeals referral. So since they are new counsel, and since will be the owner of the property in fee, will be stepping into the shoes of the contract vendee as the applicant, it makes the most sense to adjourn the matter so that counsel for the applicant can become accustomed and bring himself up to speed with that.
Wouldn't it be, I mean, we still need to have this advisory to the ZBA.
I was making the same request for
So
both
the-
of them.
It seems
Yeah.
like the order is out of sync, which is the advisory.
However you want to do it.
It just seems to me that we can't talk about, I mean, we could talk about the application, but until the ZBA rules, and we have to give them an advisory, it
You have
doesn't
to
make
give them, and
sense
they
to me.
can't
Could-
rule.
Could
Right.
we adjourn this, Bo, until a date to be set once the 11628K referral has been completed?
We could do both.
For a
and it
time
doesn't
not
really
to be
matter.
I
determined.
think you,
Control data.
Yeah,
I would think.
What were you thinking as a time?
what does the applicant want first? Do you want to present the application, or do you want to present information regarding the referral?
I think
Because
it's-
the board has no,
It's hard not to, it's hard, I think the application is sort of leads into the referral.
Yeah,
If
so
you
I
don't
don't
like
think
the
we-
application,
Okay.
you're not going to make a good referral unless,
Well,
Matt, I don't know.
could we make that determination? Again, we are just stepping in, and the application might be amended based upon the owner's interest and concern as opposed to Lipton Green as contract vendee. We would ask that maybe we could make that determination not at this meeting, right at this moment, because we are new
Sure.
to this.
So,
you think you
What-
can do it by the next meeting?
No, I would respectfully suggest that we do need some time to get up to speed. We do need some time to possibly amend the plan and file it appropriately.
So the first meeting in October?
Well, that meeting, I understand, is canceled
It'd be the
because of
28th.
Yeah.
That's in November.
Columbus
Yeah,
Day.
second weekend,
So
second
possibly
meeting in
the
October.
second meeting in October.
what is
The
the
only
date of
meeting in
that?
October.
Yes, the only meeting
28th.
is October what?
28.
Okay, so you're requesting an adjournment for Lifton Green LLC for October 28th?
yes, it's my request, but it's joined in by,
Absolutely,
It's
Joyce.
fine, whoever wants to make the
So
request.
I will make
we're
the-
both making the
I will
request.
make the motion to accept the request of councils to delay this to the October 28th,
Not delay it, adjourn it.
adjourn it to the October 28th, 2019 meeting.
And I'm not trying to talk to you about your housekeeping, but should you make it for both the advisory as well, or do you want to wait till that
Yeah,
comes
I'd
up?
love to do that, but it's,
Get it out of the
I think
way.
I have to go along the agenda.
I think the advisory is up to the board to determine that, but they'll take that under,
You want to wait until it comes up on the calendar? I'm going to make the same request.
well,
He's
it's not-
asking, can they adjourn the advisory?
I'm not, how do
I'm
you,
not
how
sure
do
you
you, how do you
control the
adjourn
advisory.
how do you adjourn the referral?
Well, because a lot of what your referral, what you're hearing is that when the owner is taking over, there may be may very well be some modifications. So what you have before you for a referral may
Well,
change.
the board won't act on it, but I'm just saying, I think the board can take recognition that the application has been adjourned and what we just talked about.
Right.
But that's a matter of referral from the Board of Appeals.
No. Yes, the Board of Appeals refers the matter to you, but particularly when the applicant is saying, hold it over,
saying what
that
would
you're not
be-
under any constraint to act within a certain
Well, the
time.
board is under no restraint not to decide it
To
now.
decide, yeah.
Why would you define it?
They
decide it
wouldn't.
now?
They wouldn't, John, I'm just
Requesting
saying
that they
that.
be continued together so that we don't have to keep appearing at each subsequent meeting or possibly writing letters. That's
Like
what we're
us?
requesting.
Yeah.
We'll make a subsequent motion.
When it
keep the
comes
order,
up,
but
fine,
yeah.
fine.
Make a subsequent motion.
So we have a motion and it's been seconded.
And I said aye?
Aye. This is for Lifton Green for the
Yeah.
public hearing, historic, right? Adjourned till October 28th. Are you voting?
Yep, aye.
Great. Next, Carol Welsh, 340 Hill Street, construct second-story addition. State your name, please.
Carol Welch. Okay, we've got an existing screened-in porch in the back of the house that we're going to put a second story on to add a closet and a bathroom. The roof line is going to be exactly the same as it is now, just extended out about 20 feet.
I just want to be sure we have posting.
Pretty simple. It can't be seen from
You
the
just put in the posting and mail, you did just put in the posting and mailing this evening, did you not?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
I had asked Mr. Studenroth to take a look at this. We have some questions. About the state of the building. So,
I'd written something on the 7th. It's in the file. I don't know if you had an opportunity to see it. It's in the file. There's a point that I just want to ask before I get to those comments, which is, I'm looking at the drawings, the specifications that were presented several months ago when you had a different scope of work that you were
Well, in a
presenting.
totally different location.
I understand. And that's been withdrawn. But that's bringing me to, I'm just a little confused, I guess, because I'm looking at what in September of 2018, in that application, which you have withdrawn, that involved an enclosed garage, et cetera, which is no longer what you're proposing. But your architect at that point showed the footprint of the house, which is not the same as what it is today, and I'm not quite sure how we got from that to this.
I have no idea. This is the footprint of the house. It's been the
Well, then-
footprint of the house for,
So then it was not represented correctly?
I guess I'd have to go back and look at the plan.
Well,
This is the architect that did the original plan on the house, did the screened-in porch, and is
so I'm
now-
just looking at documents that don't agree. And why this is important is not the rendering of the existing front and middle portion of the house, which you had previously enlarged back and gotten approval to do with the carport in 2007. I'm referring specifically to the back extension, which you are proposing to put a second story on. But the drawings from 6 months ago show a much smaller screened porch than what is represented here.
It wouldn't.
You know what I think? It strikes me that maybe that plan that you're looking at, you're correct, but maybe that's the footprint of the porch before, or the patio that was there before the porch was put in, and just the drawing wasn't properly updated last fall.
That's true. I'm just,
Yeah, I mean, the patio was always on the property,
well, I'm not concerned about patios.
and the screened-in porch was added 4 or 5 years ago
In its current
2000.
dimension. In its current
in
dimension.
its current dimension.
Okay, I just wanted to clear that point because my internal record keeping here that shows a succession of improvements and alterations had a pretty noticeable discrepancy to it. So thank you for clarifying that.
so what is the clarification?
The clarification is that the existing porch that extends off the back of the house is in fact what is shown in the present renderings and not what was shown in 2018, 6 months ago, which was about a half the size of it.
Wow.
So, just wanted to get that on the record, that we have a discrepancy in the record keeping, and perhaps that earlier architect misdrew that. That's what you're Because the point is that what is proposed as a second story occupies
going
about
over the top of it.
3/4 of the footprint of what is represented as existing, whereas this earlier drawing shows what's existing as being half of what's there. So that would not provide you a foundation for this. So, and I don't have photographs, I haven't, come by and seen what's back there. So, if our record indicates that that is in fact what is standing there, then that would provide a sufficient first floor. Okay. I'd like to keep things sort of organized here. Without going through a page and a half of what I had written, my concern with this is that it elongates the house further.
No, it doesn't go, what I'm proposing is short of what's there now, 5 feet short.
Okay, so we history types tend to look at what the house was to begin with. Okay, so what I'm saying is that second story, the peak of which rises above the newly built middle section, elongates that facade. The one-story porch with its railing, admittedly, it's an extension that exists, as you said, but it doesn't exist on 2 stories, and it doesn't present a gable peak that rises up again above the middle section. So visually, it has the effect of elongating that facade. I don't think that a screened-in porch with a railing on the top of it reads as contributing to the overall massing of a house or the scale of it. It's a one-story extension. So I'm saying that it does have that visual effect. And we do have that problem with houses that occupy relatively narrow lots, village, narrow but rather deep, in which the tendency is to just telescope the house back. And what you tend to end up with are side facades, which have to be organized that way with very little variation. When you propose the garage coming off at a perpendicular angle, even though it was street facing and there were other problems associated with it, at least it broke up the rhythm and the side of that facade in a way that this does not. And since this is, or arguably was, a historic building, the architecture that's being repeated here is that which was built new. This shed gable dormer on the upper level, it just repeats that architectural idiom that is not historic. It's what you introduced when you enlarged the house in the first place. And so my basic conclusion is we're getting further and further from the 1.5-story Victorian house that stood on Hill Street. We're at a point now where there's very little left to see and appreciate and understand as being a historic building. It's really beginning to.
But you can't see what I'm proposing from anywhere. It's not visible by looking at the house.
I didn't bring that up as an issue.
Okay.
That may be your issue. But what I'm saying is that, I mean, bushes come, bushes go, things next door, et cetera, the landscape changes. I'm just talking about the architectural and visual impact on this building. Not talking about whether you can see it and whether bushes screen it and all this business. To me, that's...
If we left this as a 1.5-story house,
Uh-huh.
it would have not been saleable because
This is
the
not,
windows were on the floor, on the second floor,
I
because
know.
of the pitch of the roof, which was
I know,
pretty
that's a-
bizarre looking.
That's a lovely feature of a house that's of 1.5-story height. So my concern is that the scale of this house and the architectural detailing of it has really drifted far afield of the historic Victorian house that we had to begin with, because all that you can see, and I'm looking at it sideways, is about 3 feet. It's sort of like a Victorian front on a very large and long house that extends to the back, because all that's been preserved is the roof line of the original house, going back about, I don't know, 2.5 feet. And beyond that point, and these were all approved, and understandably so, in 2007, these were major architectural changes to this house, major changes. And I think this board is concerned about incremental stages of development which get further and further away from whatever that historic resource was. This exterior chimney, porte cochere, this whole second story in the middle. This is not a dormer. But what you have now is a 2-story house. Originally, technically, was 1.5 story. You have a 2-story house. I guess to wrap it up, I think you have received approvals to transform this very modest house into a relatively large house. And now we have a back extension of 1 story with a railing, and now we're going up to a 2nd story on that.
Okay. When I bought the house,
Those are my observations.
the exterior chimney was there. I did not change the footprint of the house. The footprint was the house is exactly the same size, footprint-wise, as when I purchased it. The only thing that I have done to that house that has made it bigger, which is exterior, it's a screened-in porch, it's not an all-weather room, is I built the porch over the patio that was existing.
And the porte cochere?
The porte cochere was there when we made the original application. It was always on there, and it was approved.
But now,
There's an
now
application for that.
It's on the application, right?
No, it was part of the original plan when I bought the
When you
house.
say original, what approximate date are you?
2007.
Well, that's
when we
not
bought the
original.
house.
I was saying, these are
He's
features
talking
that,
with the porte cochere wasn't there when they...
No, it wasn't there.
nor was this exterior chimney.
Yeah, that was there.
It was.
Yes, it was.
See the photograph.
I didn't add a chimney. The only thing that I had to do was when we dormered out the windows on the 2nd floor, I had to add, I think it was 4 feet to the chimney.
So at some point between 1979, when this photograph was taken, and your drawings of 2011, someone built that chimney.
Someone built that chimney.
I'm going to need to, the chimney is not a part of this application. I'm referencing that as a monumental and monumentally inappropriate architectural feature for a modest Victorian house. It was approved, presumably, or it's been built, it's already there. The central point, however, is what you are proposing now, and I'm questioning how many more improvements to the back of this house are we going to see until the thing is, I don't know.
There's nothing else to do to the house.
I can think of another second. I can think of another room back there and another porch.
Well, if I,
You've got the room. All I'm saying is that this, I think the scope of what had been approved before essentially transformed the house and made it a very livable 2-story dwelling with an accessible 2nd-story deck off the back and a porte cochere, and that's really very transformative of that house. And now the board is faced with yet another addition. So that's simply my concern.
well, the only thing that's different is that there's going to be something above the screened-in porch.
That's the point.
From the back to the roof line is pretty much still looks the same. It's 303 square feet is all that's being added.
I think it's 17 by 17 and a half.
Yeah, the screened-in porch right now
No, I'm
is,
talking about the 2nd-story addition.
it's 303 square feet.
Okay?
And we're just putting in a bathroom and a closet.
So your bathroom, and your board is not concerned, but with how you're using it, but it's a bathroom, a closet, and a master bed chamber.
No, the master bedroom is already there. We're just pushing it back and adding the bathroom in the existing part of the house because it's just more convenient to have the 2 bathrooms next to each other. But we're not adding.
That's
Okay.
And the house isn't livable for us right now. That's why we've been trying to do an addition. We kind of need another bathroom. Our family has changed, the number of people in it has changed, and
But those are issues that should not be reflected in the exterior architecture of a contributing building in this historic district.
But I was under the
If a building no longer serves the purposes of the owner should think about how they're going to solve that problem. And that problem is not a problem that can be visited upon this board.
Okay, and I was under the impression that you were concerned more about what you could see from the street, not what you couldn't see.
Well, I'm unhappy with what I see already, but I think I've expressed that sufficiently.
So, if I may, let me build on what Zach was saying. I do find the telescoping of this originally modest house to be of a scale and mass that's not conducive to the historic house that it was, and that we as a board would like to preserve as much as possible. I do think that it is visible from the street, not straight on. In fact, nothing is in the rear is visible straight on, but from angles, it is. And if we allowed every modest Victorian house to telescope to the rear, we would look like not a village that had 19th century or early 20th century Victorians on that street, but row houses that would be more typical of a suburban community. I also, because your attorney brought it up some time ago, that the house has lost its historic value, that compelled myself and some of the other board members to look at the house and to see what it looked like before, to see what it looked like in the January 22nd, 2007 hearing. And then I went from that picture to a subsequent, the request, and then to the current one. I said, what happened here? Which then had me look more into the details. The house as it is today, with the exception of the court cochere, was not approved by this board. In fact, there were changes made that were, yes, believe me.
There weren't.
Okay, well, so from the January 22nd minutes, it said that the trim, fascia, and siding will remain the same. There's dentil shingles that no longer exist on the front, if you look at that picture, or if you look at the picture that you submitted on that application. Secondly, the design included the siding, approval for the siding to be Wickham gray. I don't know how it went from Wickham gray to the brown it is now, but that surely was different than what the board approved. So I've got
And the shingles were removed.
I have a practical problem with the scale and mass of the architecture. I also have a philosophical problem with the fact that the building that it is as it exists now, and that your attorney said had no historic value, was the result of actions that you took against the board's approval. And I'm not casting a finger at you, but all I'm looking at are board approvals that say one thing and a house that looks the other, and we're now being asked to yet again approve something that, and so at the end of the day, to Zach's point, we're going to be left with a house that has no historic value at all, and I just can't approve it based, again, on the architecture of what's submitted. And, you know, I might be, attitudes might change if you restore to the house to what the board originally approved. The shingles, the trim.
The shingles are the
Wickham gray.
same. They had wood shingles on it, but they had been sanded so many times, they had no texture left, so we replaced all the wood shingles.
So then what you're saying is that you did not abide by what the board approved, which was that the trim, the fascia, and the siding would remain the same.
It is the same. It's exactly what was on the house.
You just said you sanded it down.
I didn't sand it down. It had been sanded down so many times, there was no texture left. So we replaced it all.
That's not what the pictures reflect in the submission at that time.
It sounds like the shingles weren't replaced with that detail, the dental detail
Right.
of the 3 rows.
It shows on the pictures.
Okay, when I was in here the last time, you guys I was told that my garage should be in the back of the house. So right now, I'm not building a garage. But to put an addition on something that's existing in the backyard, is really not all that much different from building a garage in the backyard.
Well,
That
we
would
don't think
change the
that,
complexion of the
obviously.
house.
I don't think we think that's true. And we also, frankly, what happened to the shingles? You know, if you look at that picture from 2007, that doesn't exist. What happened? That's the house. It shows the detail. The house was white. You had permission in a ruling to have gray siding and to have dark blue shutters.
The shutters are gone.
And the shutters are gone. You've transformed this house.
I had no idea it was supposed to have shutters on it. We had removed the shutters and we just left the trim. I wasn't told that I had to keep the shutters
That's
there.
the thing about getting permissions for a historic property. You can't just take off parts of it and say that's okay. We can't agree
But
to
the
that.
house was inspected.
It wasn't inspected. We're here now, that's all we know, and we're
Right.
we're
I'd
having
like
a
to
hard
adjourn
time.
this to the next
Motion to
meeting.
adjourn at the request of the applicant, 340 Hill Street.
So moved.
Second, aye.
Aye.
You're welcome.
To our next meeting,
Yes, I believe that's what she said.
Yes, to our next meeting.
which is 23rd.
Yeah.
Okay, next, Scott Tegethoff, terrible. How do you pronounce that? I know that.
Scott Tegethoff.
Tegethoff, 261 North Main Street, covered porch and one-story addition.
I'm Richard Stott, the architect here for Mr. Tegethoff, who is here with us, as well as a neighbor
Those affidavits?
in support, affidavit of posting and mailing and the receipts.
It goes back in that other file, right?
I noticed this morning that an important detail had a list of arrows and notes on it, and every single note said the same thing. So something happened in my printing before I submitted. I'm submitting page T103 in half scale so that you guys can understand what those notes said. Okay, I can get to those as we get through this. So I'll come back to that page when we get there. If it's all right with you, I'll go through the thing from the first page. On the first page is the site plan, of course. This is a pre-existing non-conforming house. 2.9 feet from the north property line. The owners had it for a few years and asked me to make some, what we all think are pretty minor additions to it. We're requesting a 3-foot addition to the front porch. That is the North North Main Street side of the building, the east side, and a 37 square foot addition to a 1980s addition that was done on the west side of the property. I'll get a little bit more into that in the floor plans. The first page shows comparison photos across the bottom, from the existing photo at the far left bottom to the one next to it, showing the steps that wrap around the porch and the 3-foot addition of the porch itself. Those steps, by the way, I think we can reduce one of those by just adjusting the riser height and the grade as we get to it. I'm not exactly sure. It'll be a matter of a few inches of whether we can get that reduced to just 3 risers instead of 4. The second 2 are from the other direction, driving west on Skinner, just as you make the left off of Main Street. You would see this view, in the wintertime anyway, of the front porch looking towards the southwest. So again, that's an existing condition. photograph with the photo of the model, just to the bottom right. The second page is just an outline of the neighbors. The center photo is the house and plan from Google Earth, and then photos of the neighbors' houses on the four corners.
Do you know the date of this house?
The date of the house that it was originally built?
Yes.
No, I don't.
1880, I believe.
That's what the,
It once belonged to John Bennett, he might know.
1880. It's owned by Skinner. That's why it's called Skinner Street.
Okay, thank you.
It does have an old brick Victorian basement, so it was end of the last
Terrific.
20th century, 19th century. So T102, more comparison photos versus model images. So the top one is looking.
See that too?
Could you flip the page?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
This is the neighbors with a planned Google Earth view in the center and four neighbors' houses around the house.
Can you, yeah, just pull it away from the microphone.
Oh.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so next page is some comparison images. Photograph on the upper left, an image of the model on the upper right. The windows, the 80s edition had some probably changed windows a number of times, so there's some awning windows that really don't match anything there. We're going to try to bring those into some kind of traditional conformity anyway, by adding similar muntin bars and trim. So that will be improved. And the two photos in the middle have arrows that show which windows are going to be replaced. It's a little bit confusing, but the arrows point to the windows that,
What
like the
page are you on, 103?
I'm on 102.
Oh.
P102. So, for example, this bottom left window is going to be replaced by that.
Got it.
Okay. And the next
Another
page.
103.
Any other questions on this?
We'll come back to it.
Okay.
You go through it and then we can go back.
The next page shows an image of the existing porch ceiling in the bottom left. We're going to use those same details, not only for the porch floor, but the porch roof. We'd probably paint the underside of that roof a very light blue just to contrast the framing. But it will use the same kind of construction methods. The floor will be constructed in the traditional style with clear Douglas fir painted and pitched. The steps will be mahogany boards, and the ceiling will be constructed like this, with purlins and rafters and beadboard painted on top. So those are the details I was providing to you just a few minutes ago that got that were all the same when I submitted the application. On T104, we're showing examples of turned metal roof, which we'd like to use on the porch roof only. The existing roof is asphalt, and we would leave that where it is and add on the west side an asphalt roof that matches. So it would be relatively seamless there. The porch roof on the east side, we're asking for this turn color metal, which is historic, and it gets a patina similar to copper. It won't turn green, but it will sort of mellow and change according to different seasons a little bit and get a sort of weathered look to it. The owners would also like to stain the house dark, so we've given you some examples of dark colored stain on traditional buildings, both in Southampton Village and afar. We see 56 Walnut Street, 52 Hampton Road, 7 Dale Street, and Tenant Store at 91 Main Street. Are all very, very dark, black, one would say. And then there's examples of wraparound steps on a porch. one at 70 Pulaski Street, and others that are not in Southampton Village.
Just on Pulaski Street, are those actually wraparound steps or are they just front steps in the lower left corner?
They are just across the front. I don't think they wrap around. Page notes.
Sorry, off the microphone if you don't mind.
This is a roof plan that looks a little odd. The basement plan, you can see the old Victorian basement in there. So on A102, the areas of clouds are the only areas of the house that are going to be affected by this application. On the far
Just go down.
left of your page, which is west, this is the entry to the house. The driveway's over here. So when we enter the house, we're going to come down the driveway steps and go straight in. The space that we're filling in was a little, just a little entry square off of this, this space here. So, and then we're pulling the roof of this low-pitched gabled roof that was done in the 80s. We're pulling that out and supporting it on two sets of double columns. And we're adding a patio door in the kitchen dining room. That wouldn't be visible from anywhere. It's on the south side of the house. On the east side, the shaded area is the 3-foot extension to the porch, and then the steps that go beyond that. We'll add back in, there's a privacy screen there, we'll add that back when the porch is done. So when it's all done, it really doesn't look much different than it is now.
So just to be clear, you're proposing rebuilding that porch?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I don't know.
I may have missed that, so thanks.
Here again, we see the roof plan with the standing seam metal roof. Again, the shaded area is the addition. And in this plan, the shaded area is the addition, just an extrusion of the existing roof.
It'd be helpful just to go to elevations, if that's possible.
Okay, so I'm going to go to my page too. So on A200, the north elevation, which is Skinner Street, you would see it if you could on Skinner Street. This is what you would see. The 3 windows on the far right side are proposed new windows, as well as the first one left of that. That would be these 3 and that. The rest are existing and will remain.
Is there an existing elevation showing what windows are there right now on these elevations?
Not in this drawing set.
Yep. Okay.
But with the exception of these windows here, all the rest exist. And that one has no Muntin bars in it.
And the roof line that goes to the west, that's an addition. That's new.
No, only this much of it.
Oh, that much of it is...
This much is here.
Right.
That much is there.
Right, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all that's new is additional. It's not already there. It's new. Okay.
Everything that we're proposing new is additional.
Yeah, okay, that's what I said.
Yep.
Okay, I just
You
want to
got
make
it.
sure we're speaking the Queen's English.
The Muntin bars on the existing house vary a little bit between, there's a few windows that are 2/2s and a few that are 3/1s. Those Muntin bars have a little bit different profile, but they're both 5/8 Muntin bars, and that's what we plan to use on the new windows. On the next page, you see the front elevation on the top left, which would be the west elevation, south elevation on the bottom.
Okay. That's it, Richard? Okay, so if I might kick this off, because I sort of finished off the last one and had the applicant exit. But this is an interesting juxtaposition. Okay, which we'll come back to. But let me phrase it, because my statements are probably more general than specific. But the juxtaposition that I was speaking of is we had a house, an application for a house that we're concerned lost its historic value because incrementally over time, whether approved or not, changes were made that made it less than historic. We have here the reverse of that, and we actually have an opportunity to not have that problem occur. And what I see here in front of me are a lot of little modifications that collectively make this less of the historic 1880s house that it was through all these generations, including ownerships of some people here, was maintained. And so I'll start with, again, my views are more general, and I suspect Rob has more specific comments. But the change from the balustrades and the railing to porch-wide steps changes the look entirely. It's no longer that cute historic farmhouse. It's now a redo, trying to put forward the impression of something to look like a farmhouse, but instead it has modern features. I might add, now the owners may be very young, but I know some people who put in those steps and they're now putting in real railings as they get older, but that's another story. They have to live with that. But railings do serve their purposes. And in this case, it speaks to the character, the architectural character of this house, that I would be greatly disappointed to see it go by the wayside. That's number one. The roof materials are an additional area of problem for me. The addition of metal roofs change the look and the feel of the house. I know arguments could be made that farmhouses today or in upstate New York, we've heard have these characteristics, and you can find some in the village, so that's great, but it wasn't on an 1880s house that has historic value today that we can preserve, and that's part of what this board does. Thirdly, I should say, changing the color of the house as dramatically as you want, or as you're proposing, adds again to another small piece of chipping away at the historic value of this house. It's such a cute house. In fact, it's a shame, but I can understand why owners over time have built trees that hide it from the public view. But it's unfortunate, in my view, because it's a cute house that speaks of what this village was and is valuable and part of its brand. And collectively, the changes that you're making just take it out of the historic realm, and I'm afraid we'd be losing a valuable asset to contemporary tastes.
Mr. Studenroth? Oh, Rob, do you want to go, or do you want Mr. Studenroth?
Go ahead, Zach.
Go, Zach.
Well, I basically concur with Jeff's remarks. I think, to me, the criterion for the porch would be, is it dilapidated? Is it, number one, is it falling down? So, just like any structural or architectural feature of the house, does it need to be substantially rebuilt? That's the first question. And if so, I think you would want to restore it and rebuild it the way it was built, including those character-defining columns. The scale of the porch relative to the house is what it is. I think it's approximately 9 feet. I'm just counting your floor joists. So you're adding another 3 feet.
It's only 5 feet 4 inches to the whole deck, and then the railing reduces that, so it's...
Well, I'm looking at the spacing of the floor joists in section on sheet Chi 103.
Well, those are, those are proposed.
Right, and so I'm relating to your last extension requiring an additional joist. So if you're saying the existing porch is even shallower than what you're proposing, that just exaggerates the problem for me, which is that the proportion of the porch as proposed, the design of it, is not appropriate to the appearance or the scale of the house. You also, in order to get headroom as you come up those stairs, you have to flatten the pitch of the roof in order to maintain the sort of the height of the front edge of it. And so the entire look of it, it essentially modernizes a house which is contributing, which doesn't want to be modernized. You know, if it could speak on its own behalf. And I think to that point, the dark color, if this were a new house being introduced into a historic district, which there are vacancies, et cetera, then the aesthetics of what's appropriate, it's a modern house, does it work, does it blend, all those issues come up. We're talking about a building that's already on the list. It doesn't want dark gray shutters, because that's not historically appropriate. It doesn't want a porch that's 3 feet or so larger. And it certainly doesn't want a monumental staircase leading up to it. To what? To a porch on a Victorian house. The whole concept is off there. So I think, in essence, you know, from a design standpoint, you're doing a good job to modernize a historic house, except it's not one that really ought to be modernized because it's contributing. You know, if you were doing a new take on an old favorite and you were doing an entirely new house, and the porch is a little different, there's a different color, a little material, then it would be distinctly not historic, but it might blend in with its environment, and that might be okay. But that's not what's happening. So I don't think transforming this existing house with all those details is appropriate.
Rob?
Well, I'm going to echo a little bit, so I'll try to make it a little different. Surprisingly enough, the one thing that doesn't bother me so much, which usually does, is a metal roof, and the reason for that has to do with elevation, because the bottom of the porch here is already about 8 or 9 or 9 or 10 feet above the grade of North Main Street. So at the pitch that this roof is at, even though I don't like the concept, I don't think it's going to be visible at all. But that's a
From the
small
side?
thing. From the side, maybe a little bit. From Skinner, yeah, I think it could be.
I mean,
But I just wanted to cite this, which is a resource everyone should know about. It's the Architectural Guidelines for Historic Districts and Landmarks, Architectural Design Guidelines, and 2 things in particular to read out, if I could. On page 51, having to do with porches, here there's a list of 9 or 10 things to avoid. One of them is stripping porches of all or some of their characteristic elements, including balusters, posts, columns, steps, brackets, and roof decorations. And here we have one of the only remaining, I think, extant and possibly original porch balusters left in the village from a house of this era. There may be a few others, but there are not many of them. So on that basis alone, for that element, I think that fights these guidelines. And then on page 55, in a section that talks about exterior walls, similar lists, larger lists of things to avoid. One of them is painting a shingled brick or masonry wall where there's no historical basis for such a measure. Well, you know, putting this together with a previous application in this meeting, and my friends in the real estate industry, we all have them, would hate me for saying this, but buying a house in a contributing structure in the historic district comes with obligations. I have them, a lot of people in this village have them, 500 some odd people have them roughly. And these guidelines, which are suggestions, they're not dictates, as they say, but they express what are, in fact, principles, at least strong principles, embedded in the code, which is to preserve things that exist in more or less their original form and to try to retain the look and feel. And I just agree with Zach. I think whether it was the intent or not, proposing to stain the shingles a dark color, taking away the baluster, putting on a sort of block-like, somewhat modern-looking wraparound step, feels like an attempt to significantly modernize this house. And I don't find it appropriate. So I think that's maybe more of the same.
That's me 3.
I agree. I mean,
Yes.
not
I think
much
it's a
more for me
charming
to
house.
say.
It would be, it would make it denigrate its historic look. And I don't actually, I mean, if it were a new house somewhere but it isn't, and you're making it look like a newer house, which is the one thing that I think, at least we're tasked with not letting the historic houses turn into something else. So I'm not on your page.
And I should just add that, it doesn't seem to me, I don't know what, again, I don't know what the intentions are, but I also do appreciate greatly the fact that your clients seem to love this house. There's good reason to love it. And there's not a lot of other bells and whistles that seem to be proposed in terms of changing the forms other than what's been discussed. So I appreciate that, because that shows some level of understanding and respect, and it may just be a misunderstanding or of some of the other triggers in the guidelines and in the historic district that I think we just need to, it doesn't sound like you've got support on this board for the current plan for some of the reasons that have been discussed. And they're largely, cosmetic, largely cosmetic.
Okay. A few comments. As you know, I'm a design professional and I have to represent my clients' wishes. My clients do love that house. They really do. They appreciate it and make very good use of it. They're going to be there a long time. They've asked me to do these things for functional reasons as much as anything else. The addition to the front porch will make it usable. Right now, you could barely put a rocking chair on that porch. Is it falling down? No, but it's old, and if we rebuild it in kind that's 3 feet bigger, we don't feel that's asking a lot. We knew that the steps might be controversial and discussed it beforehand. My clients would agree to keeping those railings, and the columns we already plan to reuse as is. But they would be willing to reuse those railings and just leave the steps where they are on the south side of the porch, if that would be acceptable to this board. We had not discussed the metal roof, but I think my client might be willing to reconsider a different material for the metal roof on the porch. I agree with Bob that the metal roof would barely be seen from anywhere except the second floor of the house for them to appreciate. That said, I'll leave it up to the board to make that decision. We do think that turned metal is a historical material that may not have been used historically for roofs in the Hamptons as much as other places in the country, but it certainly has been around a long, long time. And that's it. I think there's a way to get to a solution here.
I would have to say that I think building the porch out and looking at the picture of the front of the house completely distorts what we've been talking, the front of the building, which is what looks beautiful about this little tiny vernacular house.
Let me
I
go
love
back
these
to the very
houses.
first page.
I did, believe me. I looked at it, and if you make it bigger, it changes everything.
The image in the very bottom left
Yes,
and the one
sir,
next
I
to it.
did.
I mean, the stairs, I agree, make a big difference visually.
I
If
think
those
3 feet
railings
on
were
a
there
little house.
instead of the stairs,
But why are
you'd
we,
be hard pressed to tell the difference between those two images.
I don't think so.
I think you see it immediately. I think the pitch of the roof, which has changed,
Sorry.
have to be, unless it would drop down another foot, which would make it hard to get into it.
Sorry.
So the whole pitch of that roof has to be elevated in order to accommodate this extension, which I think is somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 feet larger.
The pitch doesn't have to be changed. The pitch
Right,
can be
and we'll
extended 3 feet out
lean under
and
as we
3
come up.
inches higher, and it'll remain
So
the
how
same
much
pitch
deep-
it is now.
Okay, so how much deeper is the proposed porch than the existing
3 feet,
from the house? And what is the depth of the present porch?
5 feet 4 inches.
5'4". Okay. So it's about a third, a half again as deep.
Yeah, 50% greater.
It changes the proportion of it, and whether you can fit a rocking chair on it or a dining room table is inconsequential. It's the architecture of the house. We'll love it to respect it. That's what it is. And the reason I brought up the dilapidation factor is that if in fact it was in such a condition that it absolutely, for economical reasons, required a rebuild, it would have to be rebuilt as it is, not as we wish it were, because it is a transforming feature. It's the front of the house. There are arguably few other architectural features that are that distinctive of this modest house of that period, and that's it. That's it. So it does look different, and it is different. It's an original feature, and to replace it just because we don't like it is not reason enough, not for a contributing building.
So, you don't have, I believe you don't have the votes to carry any.
I wonder if there's any public.
Is there any public comment?
I would like to speak as the owner.
Sure, step forward.
So my name is Scott Tegetoff, and I do love this house. I love the fact that the inside floors are crooked, that they, you know, if you've ever been in that, well, you've been in the house, but they're crooked.
I spent a lot of time in there.
Yeah, and I do love this house.
He's the reason they're crooked.
And I didn't know all of the factors that the board has pointed out when we went to talk about the changes in this house. I would love to leave the balustrades. They are different. The balustrades on one side of the house are different than the other, but that's okay. We're happy to leave the balustrades and not do the steps. It is really hard to use the porch, and I do like to sit on the porch because there's a great yard there. If you've been in the house, it's a great front yard, and there's it's a great garden. You know, the reason for the stain on the house was to create some sort of symmetry, because right now it's like a zebra. Because when they put on the roof, they had to take off shingles, and different times that has been added on, they're all different colors. And that's why we requested a color to the house.
Well, in time, you're going to have to replace all the shingles because you have a shingled house. That's what happens.
But they're all in different colors right now.
Well, eventually.
Well, I don't know. I plan to live there until I die, so I probably got 40 years there. But I would like to submit, maybe postpone to submit plans with the railing, but I would like consideration on the porch. The house on North Main Street, right across Scrivener Street from me, is being allowed to fall down on itself, which I find to be a crime of the city.
That's being addressed.
Okay, well, I thank you for addressing that, because it is a crime and it's a hazard, and
It's
and
being
that is a mental
redeveloped.
house.
It's got a building permit to be redeveloped
Great.
with approved plans.
And the porch is being kept.
You'll notice, we don't do use up here anyway, but it's helpful sometimes to hear. I don't think you've heard any resistance to the fact that you want to make that porch larger to make it more usable. The issue for us is that there needs to be something more than that in order for us to say, take this original feature and its original dimensions away and replace it with something else. If it's a matter of trying to find some other way to enjoy your front yard, I guess I'd ask you to consider whether either a gazebo or some other accessory structure or a patio off the porch to the south might give you some of that same opportunity. Because I don't see a way that I'm likely to get comfortable with changing the dimensions and proportions of that porch on that house. And even though it's behind a hedge, we have to assume the hedge goes away. And even with the hedge, and even though it's evergreen, you still can see it. And you have a house like many, especially on a busy road like you're on, and I have some personal knowledge of this. It's seen. People do see it, and that's part of what you purchased when you purchased the house, was that sort of public visual easement. And I don't see a way that I'm likely to get comfortable. I'm open to seeing new plans, but I think I'm unlikely to feel as though a significant anything other than maintenance and repair of the existing porch is likely to be.
Because it does need repair. The floorboards are not sturdy.
Mm-hmm.
Would you have problem with the back of the house?
What's been proposed?
With what's proposed?
I don't think so. I did have a question on the columns. There is a turned column right there at the corner of the alcove right now. I don't know if it exactly matches the one in front, but the photographs indicate.
Right?
Are you different column than the ones in front? But we had planned on mimicking the column.
Mimicking that's in back.
Yeah.
Mimicking the column in front, in the back.
Yeah, but they're double columns instead of singles because they need to be
a little more weight. Yeah. Okay. I don't personally have a problem with what you've proposed for the back.
Okay.
let me add to Rob's comment about the porch, because to some extent, this is sort of like a work session, and it's a good dynamic, and
I appreciate
Richard, I
that.
appreciate it, and Scott as well. At the same time, I think it's fair to echo Rob's concern and Zach's, is that any change in the porch dimensions would not be acceptable. And we're not blind to use. It doesn't theoretically enter into our decisions, but I put forward that the distance between here and this wall is 6 feet. Okay, my stature isn't that great. Rob is of greater stature, but we can fit here. Maybe we can't put a lounge chair, but it's usable, it's functional. So the argument of use, one, it doesn't apply, but two, for me, it doesn't carry. So I don't want you to go off thinking, well, if I just do a foot, who's going to complain? Apparently, Rob and I would.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, are you asking for an adjournment?
Can we adjourn? Yes, let's adjourn to the next available.
Yes, motion to approve applicant's request to adjourn 261 North Main Street to our next meeting
The
on
23rd,
the
September
23rd of September.
So moved.
Aye.
Aye.
Second?
Second?
Second. Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Old Town Lodge number 908, 40 Main Street, construct two-story addition. Whew.
I brought little plans if you'd like them. They're the
Yes,
same.
please.
Here they are.
Do we have it? See that, I just need that. It's all set.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So Lisa Zaloga, I'm the architect for the applicant. This is a proposal to construct an addition to the back or the rear side of 40 Main Street, which is across the street. It's the old Masonic Lodge. The purpose is really for handicapped accessibility and to clean up this mishmash of stuff that's happening on the back.
That is quite a scene back there.
Yes, so our addition is 2 stories. However, the first floor is larger than the second floor. And basically, it's to put this exterior stair that's here that goes down into the basement inside the building, so that open stairwell will no longer exist. And to create this elevator shaft that will then go between the basement and the second floor. So we will be rebuilding this fire escape, but it will now run alongside this proposed addition here. And then you can see that I've stepped back the second floor, and that's primarily just the elevator shaft and a hallway to get out of it. And it allows us to put a flat roof and a little parapet wall around the first floor and put our air conditioning stuff up there so that it will no longer be down here either. So it's really kind of cleaning up this area here. All the materials will be the same.
Aluminum siding.
Vinyl siding.
Yeah. It says white vinyl siding to match.
Yes.
I actually think this is reasonable.
Very smart.
It's just that thing back there is so amazing, that stairs and everything, but it's kind of the old Southampton. Sorry to see it go, but I guess it has to go sometime.
Do we have or need full-size plans?
We have none?
I just see, were there full-size plans submitted?
I gave you 1/8-inch scale drawings. I can
But
give
are
you
they in the
I mean,
file?
I put them in when I put the 1/4-inch scale in when I give you the building plan.
Got it, okay. We'll just need, eventually we would need.
She knows
Yeah,
that,
okay.
don't you?
I think this is great. It's pretty non-controversial. I did have a question/favor, or let me just ask you. On the east elevation, are you going to re-side everything after the construction with
East
vinyl?
elevation. Oh, you mean the existing, the
Yeah.
rest of the existing house?
Yes.
I mean, building?
Can you?
Yes.
I know that you won't really see it going down the other building. So I just, when you see 2 or 3 different generations of vinyl siding, it can start, you fight against what you're trying to do, which is clean up the look.
Right, okay.
So
No problem.
that's my only question.
Zach?
Oh, I think it's.
Okay, fine. Anyone from the public
Any
have
public
anything to say
comments?
about this? Oh, this is quick.
So I will make a motion that we close the application for written decision by council at 40 North Main Street.
Second?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Bennett, back on
This,
task.
this
Thank
is
you.
your referral, so you can just discuss this among yourselves. Based upon what you've heard, I would think you'd probably want to adjourn this to the
Yes, I
October 28
briefly
meeting.
went over it. So,
So you just need a resolution to yourselves.
okay.
Can I ask one question during this point? There was some discussion, I thought, that there might be a historic report from a historic architectural historian coming, but is that subject to the fact that you may want to change or modify the plans?
It has been prepared, but I'll leave that.
Okay.
Okay, you
So
just
all
want, you
still
want
to be-
time to get organized.
That's
before.
correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's
All
correct.
right.
So I
But
just
that
make-
doesn't mean necessarily that, are we waiting for them for this long time? Okay, so you're, step forward, whoever's going to
No,
talk.
you're making this
No, yeah,
motion
this is
yourself.
just us, yeah. So I'll just make a motion that we adjourn the discussion of this matter to our meeting on October 28th, is it?
Correct.
October 28th,
On
Second?
270 Ox Pasture.
on 270 Ox Pasture.
Right.
Aye.
Aye.
Second, aye.
Aye.
Christina
second.
seconded.
And, wow, it took all night,
Thank you
huh?
very much.
And how about Thomas and Meredith Joyce? We are in the process of reviewing the advisory, is that correct?
Yeah, you can do that now.
No, well, I haven't,
Okay. all
I
right.
need time to look at it.
Very good.
So I'd like to adjourn it to our next meeting.
All right. Motion then?
Motion to adjourn the advisory case for the Zoning Board of Appeals of Thomas and Meredith Joyce, 765 Hill Street, to our next meeting of September 23rd.
Second, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Which takes us to the end of our meeting, is that correct? Motion,
That's correct, yeah.
are you,
Oh, I just thought I'd give you guys something educational.
Oh, what's happened?
They do have an
Great.
educational function.
thanks. What is
That's
it?
part of your charter. I was lucky enough to be hiking. You'll like this, Christina.
Should we adjourn the meeting? It's
Yeah,
just-
you adjourn the meeting.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn the meeting of the Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation for September 9th, 2019.
So moved.
Second. Oh.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr.